This isn't gonna work well.
It's fun.
Sometimes he's naughty. Sometimes he's nice. But every time he's Dirt Guy. It's Dirt Guy Drive Time with your host, Dirt Guy. Hey, welcome to Dirt Guy Drive Time. This is the show where I drive home from work, stuck in traffic, thinking about stuff to talk about and sharing it with you right there at home. So, you know, if you're into that kind of thing, if you're into that kind of abuse, make sure and subscribe. Share and like the video. All the crap we're supposed to say as YouTubers. Whatever with all that. But I would appreciate a subscription. Hey, there's not a whole lot going on in the work world right now. Other than say today was as good as yesterday. And when I get home, I expect it to be as good as yesterday. Good times are happening here. Way different than what we experienced on Monday. But I got something I want to talk about. But before we do, you know, I've started this t-shirt store through TeeSpring for the model railroad stuff. And I got to tell you, we're selling all kinds of t-shirts and coffee mugs. So to those of you like Kevin, I know you bought some stuff. Thank you for that. It just makes it that much easier to buy cool crap from my model railroad. Boom, that's what I'm talking about. So thank you for that, but it got me thinking, without just piggybacking on that, without just being a capitalist, surviving off the scraps of my viewers, I was just wondering what kind of shirt would work for the Dirt Show? Like Dirt Nation, huh? Let's get dirty. I don't know, I'm kicking it around. You got some ideas in that regard, let me know. But, okay, blah, blah, blah. So based on the nature of this show, it's a vlog, and we have kind of this relation thing happening between the viewers and the mirror, as it were. So rather than dispensing words of wisdom and advice and complaining about not having goals and junk, I'm taking a cue I got from Jay Michaels in the comment, I believe it was yesterday's video, talking about, asking about how I used to be a pastor. And I thought, you know, that's a part of my life that if you've got the time and you want to hear the story, I can give you the high points of my story from a period of my life until before where I am now. But this is a significant part of my life, and significant changes occurred in that period of time. And through those changes, you now see the Steve you see now. Otherwise you'd see the Steve now that I was then. And that'd be weird. That's like going back in time. And that's a different video, frankly. So we'll skip that right now. So if, again, if you've got the gumption for it, let me just give you the highlights of how I turned into this creation that you see in front of you. And it all starts back in pretty much, this story starts December of 2011, right after the 9/11 terrorist attack. I got to a point, things with my business, things in my previous marriage, stuff's a little out of control, and I found myself doing too much partying away from the house, and I actually got busted for my second DUI. That was in 2001. Did I say 2011? It was 2001. And second DUI, there's a whole story prior to that. We don't need to talk about that. The first one was like 10 years earlier, or 7 years earlier. Anyway, when that happened, I knew what was about to happen to me. I knew what was going to happen to me financially, relationally, all kinds of stuff. I was kind of freaking out a little bit. And that was at a time in my life where I realized I need to get my butt back into church. Now, I was raised in the church. My parents were in ministry. My grandparents were pastors and church planters, people who start churches all over the country and all over the world. They were missionaries, all that kind of stuff. So that's how I was raised, and that's what I knew, so that's where I went. I went back to church. Well, I caught a little fire when I went back to church. So I started studying up on it, you know, started reading the big book. The big book, not the big book. If you're an ex-AA person, you know what I'm talking about. Or a current AA person. Whatever, don't tell me, because that's supposed to be anonymous. Anyway, and I started getting fired up. I started getting my my thing going, And what that did, it led me to starting to lead like Bible study kind of things. And then one day, the church that I was attending, I was involved in volunteer ministry there. And the pastor one day called me into his office, and I knew one of two things. I was either getting excommunicated or he was going to ask me to preach. And I just knew he was going to ask me to preach. I just knew it. And he said, sometimes I need to take a break and da-da-da, and I've seen some of the stuff you've been doing. I've heard the way you talk, and would you be interested in filling in for me to preach sometime? Boom! Yes, I said. I would love to do that. Now, I just thought for sure I'd get out there and just preach up a storm my first time out there like I was friggin' Billy Graham. I really did. It turns out I was so damn nervous. I was sitting on the front row where the pastor normally sits before they call him up to preach. And I just had this fantasy that they were going to forget that I was supposed to preach. They're going to finish all the music and then go, and now our closing prayer. Boom! I got out of it. Nope, they called me up. I went up and I preached my first sermon. And at that church, I probably preached, 4 or 5 times. And but I wasn't too happy with the pastor guy. So I ended up with some friends. We decided we were going to start our own church. And there was some politics at the church I was going to, and the church was breaking up and people were freaking out. I wanted to be done with it. It was like watching your parents get divorced. And not a healthy divorce, a terrible one. So I blew out of there. And we went and started our own church. Put a pin in that for a second, roll back. One of the ministries I was involved with, because I had an alcoholic past, was I was working with people in AA and in recovery. And I had my own company, so I would give them jobs and meet with them and help them out. I put a great deal of time into their lives we had this thing that if you love on somebody enough, that's enough to fix them. You just got to love on them. And that was bullshit, by the way. I thought it would work. It didn't work. Anyway, pardon my French. So there was a couple of people out of that program that I befriended, and actually one of them became, as he recovered, he got on his feet, and he worked his way up through my company. He was my right-hand man. He was fire and forget. He was my best friend. And we did so much together, laughing. Then when we started the new church, he was the go-to guy for setting up every Sunday and tearing down. And we started by meeting in a public park. We're like, we're just going to go meet in public and get that done. And so we did. Well, the first Sunday, the park we met at turns out was full of homeless people. They were everywhere. And we were making lunch for everybody anyway. We wanted to stick around and have lunch after the service. So we started inviting the homeless people to come hang out with us. And next thing you know, the church we started turned into a church for homeless people, bikers, hookers, strippers, drug addicts. It was amazing, which was cool, but it was a little hard to get, let's say, normal people to participate in the church. It didn't matter. I had a company and I was funding the operation. So let's flash forward a little bit, shall we? Let's flash forward to 2008. In 2008, the economy was on the verge of collapse, as we all know. And my company was feeling that. I was desperately trying to hold on to my business while contractors all around me were failing and not paying me. I had 40 guys at one point, and my best friend was one of them, as I told you. So that was happening. At the same time, I'm trying to fund this church. We're meeting in a building and everything by then, paying a worship leader. Just trying to get all that done. And then my now ex-wife, she started acting funny. She would be going out with her cousin or a friend or something, but then I couldn't get her on the phone. This went on for a little while. And one day I brought her into my home office in my garage. And, you know, again, I'm still full-fledged, dyed-in-the-wool pastor at this point. Pastor of a church, homeless people. And I had a little conversation with her about her behavior, and through a course of about 20 questions, led her to confess to me that she and my best friend were more than besties, as it turns out. Yep. 21 years of marriage, 4 kids. And I was the pastor dude. I was like the dude. I wasn't drinking. I was loyal, faithful, industrious, provider. I was everything that you're supposed to be, I think. She dumped me for my best friend. My best friend dumped me for my wife. What an exciting adventure we're on so far. You guys want to know everything, you know everything. Well, let's not belabor that point. Guess what? When the pastoral couple of a homeless church has a problem like that, the homeless people lose all hope and faith, and they just start freaking out. It gutted me so bad I could not fight any longer to keep my business open, and it closed. Church closed, business closed, and I went from living in a nice big house, driving a brand new truck, to living in my soon-to-be ex-wife's uncle's trailer without a vehicle. That's where I was. I had to take about a month off from the whole pastor thing from that. I was gutted. I had nothing. Meanwhile, during that whole course of time, by the way, Cindy Brown, the first lady of everything, presently my wife and will always be, she became like the go-to gal. She took care of my girls while my girls' parents, me and the ex, blew up. She was loving on the homeless people. She was really a strong member of this deal. So much so that when I bailed out for about a month or maybe more, she kept the whole ball rolling on her own. And I told her, you know what, I need to come back to my church. And she said, if you come back, you can't leave again. Otherwise, I'm not going to be part of it. We had an agreement. So we started working on the church again together. And then the homeless people, apparently, they couldn't handle it. They started freaking out again. And we just closed it permanently. But I wanted to be a pastor. I was in the car business then because I closed my company. I was a car salesman. I wanted to be a pastor. Nobody will hire you without a degree. So I went to college to get my master's in theology. And that's when the wheels really came off. I spent 3 semesters and accumulated a $10,000 student loan debt. And I was on the dean's list all 3 semesters. Actually, I went 4 semesters, but I quit the 4th. And the problem is, the deeper I got into understanding the roots of my belief system and what they're based on, the less and less I was inclined to believe in them, is what happened. The history of things, the development of things, and I'm going to be a little vague here because it's not my mission to offend anyone in their belief system. But through the course of all of that, I kept trying to pare back to my core belief that I could hold on to and take with me. And the core belief that I finally ended up with was, there's a God and I'm not it. That's what I came up with. The rest of it's gone. So, hey, Jay Michaels, I don't know if you wanted such a long explanation for why I'm not a pastor anymore, but that little story might give you some insight into why, let you know a little bit more about why I respond to things the way I do, how I act. But I got to tell you, in the end of it, the one part of that big book that I do believe in is the last 3 chapters of the book of Job. Go read it. That's where everything gets good. I ended up with, my best friend is my wife. We have been through hell and high water together, just as tight as can be, the 2 of us. Love her with everything that's within me. And we've been married 9 years now, and it only gets stronger. I know that sounds cliche. I know that sounds goofy, like some kind of a chick flick, but it's true. I would be lost without Cindy. I don't want to, I'm getting off topic, but just Cindy, if you're watching this, I love you, babe. And I mean it. Seriously, I'm gonna cry. Let's move forward. So there you go. Hey, sometimes you get the comedy, sometimes you get the satire, sometimes you get a conspiracy report. Sometimes you get me just telling you a real shitty story with an awesome ending. So there you go. Anyway, thanks for hanging out with me on my way home today. Tomorrow, We'll be right back here for our great Friday weekend wrap-up report. Got some good stuff happening this weekend I want to tell you about. But until then, my name is Steve Brown, and watch your six.